It's 1 a.m. now sorry, 1 p.m. in Armenian, right?
Yes.
Yes, okay. All right, well, hi Megan, welcome to Solopacker podcast. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing good as well. It's really good to see you.
It's good to see you too, in different parts of the world, but
Yeah. Well, just to give you guys heads up, Megan, she's Megan Starr. By the way, I was gonna ask you as well, why is it Starr? Is it your real family name? I was always like, oh my God, when I think about a star or when I look at the star, I'm like, oh, there's Megan Starr. So I think it's a really cool last name. But
thank you.
Megan,
it is real. Yeah, it's actually
Oh,
my
it
last
is
name.
real. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Awesome. I think Aram should become Aram Star, it sounds really cool.
Yeah. I don't know if you'd like that so much, but yeah.
Well, so Megan, she's from America, Virginia, and she has traveled a lot. She lived in Norway for quite a while, and now she moved to Armenia. So today our topic for the podcast is about traveling in Armenia. So, yeah.
Yes, I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for being our guest speaker today. When did you move to Armenia, Megan?
So I actually, I don't live here full time. I'm only here part time right now. I'm also based in Germany, but I came here 2 years ago and I started coming back more and more often because my business partner and friend is here. So I think it was like last August, I just decided, okay, I'm just going to get a flat here. That way I don't have to keep going back and forth without the certainty of having a place to stay when I came. So officially, I got an apartment here last August. So I guess that's technically that's definitely
you actually bought an apartment?
No, I rent.
Oh, you rent?
Yeah. So I rented one like last August, and now I stay here quite a bit. I'm usually still back and forth, but with the virus, I've been here for the last couple of months.
When did you move?
Last August is when I came here.
Last August. Okay.
But I'm in between here and Germany, and I go back and forth. But now with the virus, I've been stuck here since I think like March 15th, around that day somewhere. Yeah.
Okay, so why do you go back and forth? Do you also do you do blogging in German as well, or how does it work?
Yeah, so I actually have a home in Germany as well. I have a dog that lives there still. He's old, so he can't move around too much. But yeah, so I'm back there part-time, and I do all my travels in Western Europe when I'm based out of there. And then I do all my travels in this part of the world when I'm based out of here. So I just go back and forth. It's a healthy divide right now, but eventually I'm going to need to pick where I want to be. So
pick one.
One day we'll see where that ends up being.
Right. So why Armenia, Megan? It's when you think about Caucasus, you think about Georgia. And so far, I work in tourism as well. And when I ask about travelers, everybody's just talking about Georgia, but nobody so far is talking about Armenia. So why did you pick Armenia?
Yeah, it gets left off, and I just can't understand why. I mean, I get the bigger picture, but it definitely has just as much to offer. I started coming here in 2012, 13, somewhere in there, and that's actually the same time I ended up in Central Asia. And I really fell in love with this part of the world and Central Asia. And I think when I had planned my trip to the Caucasus, I had planned Georgia, Armenia, and Abkhazia. And the main one that I was supposed to absolutely love was going to be Georgia. And I get to the region and I built up all these expectations of Georgia, and Georgia's great. I had a blast there, but I was really shocked at how much I really liked Armenia, and I didn't know what to expect here. And I just found kind of a country that just seemed a bit forgotten about. Everybody kind of had their sights set on Georgia, even though tourism wasn't really there yet. But everybody they were aware of Georgia. They knew about Georgia, but everybody kind of just left Armenia off the map. And I got here and I just discovered a place I absolutely loved. So it took me a while to actually come back to this region for a few reasons. It's not easy from Western Europe at the time to get here cheaply.
Right.
And when I eventually came back, I was here during the revolution, actually 2 years ago, and I fell in love with it all over again, but kind of for a different reason. So I wanted to build tourism here, and I ended up meeting my current business partner and best friend, and we ended up deciding to do it together because we had the same desires. So so now I call it home, and I'm doing my best to try to encourage people to travel here.
Why do you think Georgia, became much more popular than Armenia? Do you think it's because of marketing?
So, I'm not really sure why people think of Georgia first. It's, I really don't know. I mean, in our heads and in our minds, I think it's just, like you said, it's been marketed better. And it's really interesting because in the United States, we have the large Armenian diaspora, but I guess we associate that with like the Kardashians, which isn't necessarily a favorable, I hate to say it, it's not a favorable image necessarily. So nobody's actually, I think, looking to come here because of them. They know the awareness of the country and they might know a little bit about it because of them, but nobody's looking to travel here. They're not necessarily the best brand ambassador for the country when it comes to travel. So I think it just kind of got left off the grid a little bit. It's small. It sounds like Albania, Armenia, kind of any other country, whereas Georgia, when we think of it, we think of a U.S. state. So we automatically can remember the name of the country and a little bit about it. I don't know though. Georgian food is very, you can find Georgian restaurants in the United States. You can find them in Western Europe. So I think people got a little bit familiarized with the country based on its food as well. So I think it's a marketing thing somewhat. And Armenia has never put marketing ahead of other things in the past, marketing the tourism to the Western markets. So I think nowadays it's kind of on the radar a bit more, and hopefully we'll see the image and awareness pick up.
Right. Well, when you came in 2019, right? 2019, last August. Yeah. So by that time, Georgia was already quite popular, So for you as a blogger, wouldn't it be more like, I don't know, like the right word, but I mean, wouldn't be easier to just, move into Georgia and start marketing Georgia? It all was already like getting like really popular, like everybody's talking about Georgia. So, but like Armenia, I think it's much harder to start, like to begin with, because like so far, like in Armenia, I don't know anybody else who's doing marketing, like except for you and Aram.
Yeah, there isn't really anybody, to be honest. There are some domestic travel bloggers here, but like I can't read those blogs very easily. So when it comes to English speaking, there's no information here. So we decided to kind of step in and fill that gap where we saw one. It would be easier to be in Georgia, to be honest. There are a lot of reasons it would be easier. The border situation is more friendlier there than it is here. There are a lot of travel bloggers that base themselves there. But at the end of the day, like I'm not looking to make friends with a bunch of other bloggers. I'm looking to market and bring tourism to a country. And the one thing I love about Armenia is no matter where I've gone in the world, anywhere I've written about, there's always a hater. Even if you write really positive stuff, you're going to get somebody that says, it's not really like that. Whereas with Armenia, they've been just left off the grid for so long that people are just so happy to have like external voices writing about the country. So in promoting it. And we're not promoting, I mean, we write travel guides, we promote it in a positive light, but we also address real problems here. And people are really receptive to it. I think it's a breath of fresh air because somebody is talking about the country here. And so for us, it's like really kind of a passion project more than anything right now. We have our other website, which is the one that makes the money currently. We're making money on the Armenia one, but not quite as much, of course. But, seeing that we're able to just kind of change tourism and the dynamics in this country is just rewarding in itself. And that's kind of what our goal is at the end of all of it.
So, like when you went to Georgia, you liked everything about Georgia, right? Like you were really like, I mean, you said that you really enjoyed it as well. So like in Armenia, you like it as well. But do you think like, what makes it different, like between Armenia and Georgia?
It's really different. And you don't realize it when you just come here for a quick trip, but the two countries are extremely different. I feel like, and I can't speak for Georgia because I haven't been there as much, but I feel like Armenia has just always kind of gotten the short end of the stick. I mean, you've had the genocide here. You've had horribly corrupt government. You've had the earthquakes. It just always seems like they didn't quite get their fair share. And the people are very humbled as a result, and they're willing to take you in. And it's really like, and I know Georgia is really great with hospitality as well, but there's just something here that just feels so ingrained in people, and they just take care of you here. So for me, like when, you know, I come here and people will take me into their homes and feed me and talk to me and take care of me, it's just on another level that I've never seen. And I think, you know, when you look at the history of this country, it's always kind of gotten the short end of the stick. So the only way to make things work was to take care of each other. And that's what they've been trying to do here. So no matter what kind of situation they go through, you can see that in the society that they want to help each other. So for me, I always felt that that was like a very positive thing coming here. And of course, Georgia is great as well. But, you know, there's a different history here, and there's different people here. So for me, I always felt that it was a little bit different in that respect.
So you mean that people are more genuinely hospitable in Armenia?
Yeah, I mean, you know, and I don't want to say that they aren't in Georgia. They're extremely hospitable. The hospitality is off the charts. But here, I just feel like they have been through so many rough periods throughout the last like century, a little bit over a century, that, I mean, you can just see this rawness in it. They may have nothing to give you, but they will find a way to still pamper and spoil you. And, you know, coming from the United States, it's a breath of fresh air. Like we're pretty hospitable people as well, but ours is a bit more surface level. Here, it genuinely is really, really deep. And it just makes for a really great experience when you come here and you do get to interact with local people.
Do you think that also because, like, you know, Georgia, like we mentioned, you know, they have good marketing. So, you know, it's like flood of people, you know, like just, you know, like, I mean, flooding Georgia with tourism, like wherever you see, there are so many people. In Armenia, you don't have it yet. So do you think that it's because of that tourism is not yet developed? So maybe in about 10 years, I don't know, who knows, maybe also, you know, I went to Georgia as well. So I felt like sometimes, you know, local people were kind of tired of tourists because there are so many of them.
Yeah.
But while in Armenia, you know, like in quite a lot of places, and I went like overland from Georgia to Armenia, I felt like still I was the only one, for example, in some places staying. So I felt like people were much more excited also because there was nobody else, you know, it's like, it's just picking up.
Yeah, I think that is a huge part to deal with it, actually. Like in Georgia, when I go there now, especially like in Tbilisi, I don't feel like it's any different than any other city in Europe. The way that people treat you, they don't really proactively speak to you. It's a lot harder to meet people there these days. Whereas like, you know, 7-8 years ago, it was a totally different scenario.
Yeah.
Whereas here in Armenia, I find people are curious. So, you know, when people look at me, they don't think that I'm Armenian. They automatically think I'm Russian. They hear me open my mouth and then they're like, wait, she's American, but she doesn't look Armenian. So here you have a lot of the diaspora who have come back. So they're Armenians who, you know, ended up in other parts of the world due to the genocide or something that happened during the Soviet times. So they come back and they look Armenian, but they don't speak like an Armenian necessarily would. Whereas I kind of don't fit anything. So people are curious and they ask me, and then they're like, well, why, if you have no Armenian ancestry, are you here? Which shows me that there's not many tourists here. There's not a lot of foreigners living here that are not Armenian. And it's very evident. The locals might tell you, oh no, we've got a lot of expats here, but that's not the case really compared to any other city that I've ever been to. So there's just not a lot of foreigners here. So I think people, they really spread that hospitality in such a different manner because they're not overwhelmed by foreigners or different people here just yet. And it makes it really special, especially when you go out to like villages and stuff, and the people are just, the hospitality is just a top notch when you're there.
So do you think, like, in your experience, Armenia is a top hospitable country?
I do.
World?
Yeah. No, okay. I mean, I've been to nearly 100 countries and I've had insane hospitality everywhere. I mean, especially Kyrgyzstan. But for here, you know, like I've just had remarkable hospitality here, no matter what. And I've had it with Armenians that have lived in other places around the world as well. So it's just something that is in the society that is just never kind of left the blood of the people throughout generations, no matter where they ended up. So yeah, for me, I feel really, really comfortable here, and I feel very much like part of the family, I guess. Technically, I don't know how to word it better, but yeah. I've had great hospitality in a lot of places, but here has been, I think, the top notch.
Yeah, actually, I agree with you. Like, especially I remember, what was Dilijan, near Dilijan National Park. Yeah, I was staying in a guest house. It was more like a homestay. I just stayed there once, and I left my extra backpack, so because I wanted to go hiking to Dilijan Park. And only the second time when I came back, the owner of the guest house, she remembered my name, and it was like meeting a long lost friend,
yeah, that's so cool.
So hospitable.
And it's cool because like it's interesting to hear a different point of view, because like you're from Kyrgyzstan and you can communicate with them, in Russian most likely, whereas I'm still struggling outside of Yerevan to actually have a communication with people. So for me to still feel so hospitable, even though I can't break a certain barrier with anybody, shows me that people go, above and beyond to make sure that you feel welcome in their country. And I find that really special. They find a way to communicate with you, whether it's over vodka or food or gestures, whatever. They find a way to still communicate with you, even though they can't. And for me, that speaks wonders about a country.
Even drivers, like, for example, like Kyrgyzstan, it's also off the beaten path. It's not a popular country yet. But here, for example, if I'm standing at the bus station, if the driver comes up to me and asks, hey, do you need help? Usually, it's like, okay, he wants me to take to the, like, wherever he's going, to his destination. So he's trying to offer me something. So I don't know about the drivers. I always have this perception that they always want to offer their like services, so that's why they approach me. So I had the same when I was in that in Dilijan National Park. I was at the bus station departing towards Yerevan, and one of the drivers, he came up to me, and I was like, oh no, it's okay, no. And then he was like, oh no, actually just tell me, it's fine, I just want to help you, Like, what's your question? And then I told him, oh, I'm just looking for a place to eat. And he was like, oh, you can go here or you can go there, this is this way, that's that way, And he told me this information, and he was like, all right, welcome to Armenia. And he left. And I was like, oh my God.
Yeah. It sometimes makes it hard to distinguish between, like, sometimes you just like, you travel so much that you're just like, are they giving me the right information, or do I have to pay them a tip for this? But no, it's just the genuine hospitality. And I think I missed that because when you travel a lot, you kind of become a little bit skeptical over what information is being offered to you, and do I need to tip them, or are they giving me the right info? But yeah, they genuinely just want to help and make sure that you have a good stay here. So I think that is something exactly right, like that you experience a lot here, and it's actually really refreshing.
And speaking about Georgia, Armenia was very different for me, like compared to Georgia. I don't know, like when we like I mentioned, when we hear about Caucasus, we hear about Georgia, about Georgian hospitality, but to be honest, I didn't feel it that much actually, as I felt it in Armenia. So, and the people were so simple and so open in Armenia, that it also became one of my most favorite countries.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, I feel like it's starting to dissipate in the main areas of Georgia. Now, in the villages, I can't speak for that. I haven't traveled there kind of that deeply in a few years. But in the city, like of Tbilisi, I definitely don't feel like it. I don't feel it currently the way that it used to be. So it's definitely changing, and tourism changes, which you expect, and good for them. I mean, they deserve it. It's a freaking wonderful place. But yeah, the hospitality is starting to die out a little bit in the larger cities for sure.
Right. Yeah. Well, what are other things that you like about Armenia?
I really like the food, actually. So I find the food, I've traveled a lot around the region, and I've traveled a lot in countries that used to be part of the USSR. And I struggle with food a little bit. It's either really oily and heavy, and it doesn't sit well with my stomach, or it has like a lot of dill on it, and I really don't like dill. So I find the food either super heavy full of dill, or it just isn't for me. But this is kind of the exception of a country where I really just love almost everything here. I find the food a lot lighter. It's got a little bit of like Middle Eastern flair to it. So it has like a lot of use. Sorry, I have to itch my nose.
Oh, it's okay. You know, we have a superstition in my culture. For example, if your nose is itching, there are two reasons. First, either you're gonna drink a lot of vodka, and second, someone is gonna fall in love with you. So maybe after this podcast, goes air, maybe someone will fall in love with you. So.
I'll have to go walking on the street, see what happens.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. All right, back to it.
Okay.
Yeah, so I find the food here to be, it's like a little bit of a mixture of everything in the region. So you do have some of the heavier foods here, but you also have some really light and fresh ingredients that are used in the cuisine. And it's for me, a breath of fresh air. It's just fresh and seasonal, and they don't put chemicals and stuff. Everything is very natural. And it just feels really good. So like when I eat a meal here, I don't usually feel like disgustingly full afterwards. Whereas while I like Georgian food a lot, I find Georgian food exceptionally heavy. So I don't feel great after I eat it, but it feels good when you're eating it. Here I feel good as I eat it and after I eat it usually.
Right.
So I really like it. But for me, I think that's probably one of my top, aside from the people, I really like the food here. On the contrary, there is not a lot of diversity within food. So
that's what I felt like. Yeah, when I was there.
Yeah, if you don't like Armenian food, you're gonna hate the food here because that is all that they have. There are not a lot of international restaurants here, and if you do have them, they are just not good. So fortunately, they have like a lot of Lebanese food, which is really tasty, and it's good here. But you have to come here with the mindset of I'm gonna have to eat like an Armenian or I'm not going to be able to survive here unless I cook on my own.
Right. Well, when we hear about Georgia, it's like, I don't know, cheese, wine, khachapuri, and labiani, but I don't know actually any traditional dishes, Armenian dishes.
Yeah. So Armenian dishes, and like I hate in certain regions when they're like, oh no, that belongs to this country or that. I can tell you what they eat here. I don't know where it originated, but they eat dolma, like the grape leaves wrap, which is common in the entire region. So they have dolma, they have lavash, the bread. It's like a very thin, large bread. It's really tasty.
Like used for shawarma, right?
Oh, yeah. It's like you can eat anything with it, is what I've learned. And it actually would be really good in American cuisine, like with, you can kind of substitute it for like Mexican tortillas if you're gonna go the flour tortilla route, which I don't prefer, but I think lavash is really tasty, so it would actually be a nice complement. I mean, you have that. You have a bunch of different soups. They eat a lot of salads here. Like some ingredients that you'll find commonly are like pomegranates. You see like tarragon, apricots. The tomatoes here are super good. It's the same up in Georgia and even over next door in Azerbaijan. So like the produce here, it tastes like nothing I've tasted in my part of the world. It's really, really flavorful and juicy. So I think that was actually the first time I ate a tomato and liked it in my life was in the Caucasus. And that was, I was in my 20s when that happened. I was living in Norway prior to that, and the tomatoes there are not good. So I think it's just the freshness of the ingredients and how they bring it all together is what really allows for the food to shine here, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, actually in the entire region, or maybe just like anywhere, the best wine that I tried was in Armenia.
Oh, do you remember what it was called?
I don't remember the name, but actually it was a homemade wine from cherry.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, they have really good wine here, and I'm waiting for it to kind of have its like moment across the world. But everybody keeps talking about Georgian wine, which is delicious. Don't get me wrong. But Armenian wine kind of needs to shine a little bit. I find it tastes different, and sometimes they infuse fruits in it, so it's a bit sweeter, but I prefer like their dry red wines here. And a lot of people don't know this because other countries take the credit for this, but the actual oldest winery that's been discovered thus far is here in Armenia, down in Armenia. So it's the oldest one that they've historically found, even though like Georgia, I think, promotes themselves as the cradle of wine, but actually the oldest winery was here in Armenia.
Okay. How about the cognac? It's also typical of Armenia, no?
It is. I'm not a huge fan of that type of spirit in general, but it's a huge thing here. So it's funny because this is like the birthplace of wine, but more people probably know Armenia for its cognac than they do for the wine. So, but I think that was brought about in the 20th century, like with Churchill and Stalin and everybody. I think Stalin gave cases of Ararat cognac to a lot of the world leaders. I think this is how it went, like at the Yalta conference or something, and they all really, really liked it. So it was kind of like the gift that Stalin would give everybody. So
good marketing.
Yeah, really good marketing. So nowadays, like more people associate the country with cognac, which I think this is the only region outside of France that you're allowed to call the spirit cognac, because it's actually technically a brandy. And but yeah, it's really famous, and there's different levels of it. So some of it's really expensive, some of it you can find affordable, but it's from the Ararat Brandy Company here in Yerevan. Yeah.
Ararat is also the name of the mountain, right? That's shared between Armenia and Georgia, right?
Turkey.
Oh, Turkey. Okay, Turkey.
Yeah. So
right.
It's actually technically in modern day Turkey, but if you come here and talk about it, you will hear that you'll hear them refer to it as Western Armenia. So prior to like the genocide and the Ottoman Empire and stuff, that area over there is historically Armenia. So if you go to Eastern Turkey, or what they call Western Armenia here, you'll see a lot of like abandoned churches and Armenian stuff there, because it used to be Armenia. Yeah.
Right. How do people, like, when I was traveling in Armenia, actually, I was, prior to traveling, I was a little bit worried, but I didn't expect to have one of the best times. But the reason why I was a little worried is because of the Armenian genocide. It's by Turkish people, and the thing is, I am also, Kyrgyzstan is it's in Central Asia, but the languages we speak is one of the Turkic languages.
Yeah.
So we share some similarities, with Turkish culture. So I thought that, when people would know that I'm from Kyrgyzstan, they're like, oh, you speak one of the Turkic languages. So yeah, nothing like this happens, but yeah,
it's really interesting. So I think like the vibe I get, and I can be totally wrong, but based on my experience here, the vibe I get is that Armenians don't hate Turkish people. They just want recognition for the genocide, and they want them to acknowledge that there was in fact a genocide. But if a Turkish person is traveling here, and I get a lot of people that are from Turkey that are messaging our website looking to visit here, there seems to not be a lot of ill will or hate directly towards those people.
When I meet the travelers, and then when I ask them, oh, so where you've been and how it is, like all the comments so far that I had, everybody had a really good time in Armenia. Yes. Whether it's people, food, or in terms of nature, though, I feel like, for example, as I was hiking in Dilijan National Park, like I didn't meet any tourists, so it was kind of cool. But the thing is, like, I was alone, so it was also kind of scary because the pathways weren't marked really well. And then I saw a sign of a bear, and I was like, oh my God,
Oh no.
Yeah. So I only hiked for like a day and a half, and the next day I just decided to go down to the nearest village. While in Georgia, for example, there's this famous hike between Mestia to Urguli. When I was doing the hike, I met so many travelers. The pathway was marked so well. I didn't even think about bears. There was no sign of a bear.
Yeah. Well, here, you're right. It's definitely not a lot of people doing it. And unfortunately, this country, while it's lacking international tourists, I mean, sometimes you do get Russians here though, but while it's lacking most international tourists, the domestic travelers don't really travel that much either. So it's kind of a newer trend, and I'm hoping that the virus will actually perpetrate more domestic tourism here and get people out and enjoying their own country. Especially the people in Yerevan, I'm like, I want to see them out in the nature and helping these villages kind of develop. Because that's, their responsibility just as much as an international tourist. So I think actually the virus is going to help that a little bit, because people are getting bored and they're getting restless. And I'm hoping that'll encourage them to see their own country more.
Right. Mm-hmm. And now that, after the virus, it's most likely that people are gonna try to like choose off the past destinations.
Yeah.
And, Armenia is one of them. So it could be a next opportunity.
Yeah, I hope so. We'll see.
What do you think about relationships? Again, when I was in Tbilisi, I met this Russian girl, and she was dating an Armenian guy. Yeah. And she was telling me that, he was the most caring boyfriend she ever had. For example, she lives in Tbilisi, and then he lives somewhere in Armenia. And then every weekend, he would drive for 6 hours to Tbilisi in order to bring her fresh milk. And I was like, wow. That's so cute. Yeah. And she was telling me also that she was so excited about Georgia when she was in Russia and about Georgian men, but once she arrived to Georgia, she was like, oh, actually, she had she over expected, things. Yeah. And then this guy that she met, from Armenia, she was like, oh my God, it's like, the countries are so close, but they're so different, like in terms of relationship. Like for her, the major difference was the relationship that people had, especially relationship between men and women. What do you think about it?
Oh, I'm probably the wrong person to ask this, because I find it so traditional here. Like one of the most traditional places I've ever seen when it comes to relationships. I mean, it is sex is taboo here. The way that people they get married very young. It's very taboo, topic here. So I don't really talk about it too much, except with like my close friend here, and I kind of express like, I don't know. It's just a very different place. I do find it really, really traditional though. It is very much a patriarchal society, so the guys do dominate the relationship far more than the female. Times are changing slowly, but I do find that it's still a huge thing here. I don't know anything about Georgia or anywhere else in the Caucasus when it comes to guys. I just see what I like observe here, and I'm pretty good perception. I have pretty good perception of things. It's very traditional. Yeah.
Caucasus though, it's I'm not sure. Probably it's different for locals, but I felt the most safe actually in Armenia.
I feel I do too, actually. Yeah.
When I was traveling in Georgia, I had like oftentimes actually, somebody hitting on me, and sometimes oftentimes it's somebody so much older than I am. And I was always, I'm always like wearing just the same pants, and I look like I don't know, I look like a hitchhiker, in my, and there's like a hole in my pants, and then I have a backpack which it got torn, so I had to fix it a few times. I mean, and I don't put any makeup, and and then I was so surprised myself. But when I was in Armenia, nobody hit on me, so I was like, oh, maybe I'm not sure. I was like, oh, maybe I look like, maybe now I'm looking like much more tired than I was at the beginning of my trip. I even like started looking around, but it was very interesting, like in terms of perception.
Yeah, it's okay. So it's a bit strange. Like I felt in Georgia, I felt people were screaming across the street at me on things like that back in the day, and it actually like took a mental toll on me. When I got here, they still hit on you in inappropriate ways, but it's a subtle kind of way. So I still find it here. I find it like, for example, here's something that they do here that I've not experienced anywhere else. They will find you. They will immediately find you on a street. They'll stop you. They'll ask you to have tea. If you don't want to have tea with them, they'll ask for your Facebook. They'll ask for this, and I'm just like, why can't I just walk down the street without being stopped by somebody to do this? Oh, it's only if I'm alone, of course. I have every day I get 10 to 20 Facebook messages and requests from Armenian guys who just see that I live here, which is a bit disturbing. You don't experience that anywhere else. It's quite disrespectful in most societies to do that kind of stuff. So that is kind of what I experience here. So it's a bit more subtle than what I experienced in Georgia. In Georgia, it was like a shouting at you across the street. It just seemed like more in your face, whereas here it's done, but it's in a different way. So I definitely experience it here, but I feel safe here. So I don't feel like somebody's going to, if I say no, like I don't like get away from me or whatever, like nobody usually is going to follow me down the street. Like I don't feel uncomfortable with that, which is a really good thing. So, but I would say that like I have had some girlfriends come here, multiple of them, and they've been in some unfortunate situations with men in villages. So I can say, just keep your guard up. Unfortunately, that's what women have to do when we travel, which is really unfortunate, but it's the case anywhere. And in the villages here, there is definitely a different type of man sometimes who definitely has a different view on women. So if you are here, definitely keep your guard up. Unfortunately, that is still a problem sometimes in remote areas, but I don't feel unsafe anywhere here at all. I feel like, but I don't really put myself, I'm not usually out there hiking alone or anything like that, just to say. So I can't speak for somebody that goes out and does those kinds of activities alone, but I haven't felt uncomfortable for the most part anywhere here.
Are there like any tips, like except like being on guard, like that you could recommend for people who are traveling in Armenia?
Yeah, I mean, I hate to say like being on guard, because we just shouldn't have to do that as females, but it is, it is a different era here to a degree. Right. So you have to kind of scale back into that mindset. I would say when you're coming here, just be open-minded, go with the flow. Like you're probably going to be invited to somebody's house. And if you get invited into somebody's house and they're with their family, they really just want to show you hospitality. They're going to feed you a lot, and it's going to be really good food. And they're going to want to talk to the best of their ability. Like what I've always found is when I'm invited into somebody's house, 90% of the people that are inside that house will not speak English, but they will find that one person who does, and they will make them do all the translation of the conversation. So I just say, give yourself a couple extra days here and expect the unexpected, because it probably will happen. And it'll probably be the experience that you'll leave Armenia remembering why you loved it there, is because of those unexpected things that bring you close into the locals here in the society.
Well, actually in Iran, like there is a term called taruf, like when somebody invites you to their home, you're not supposed to say yes from the first time. So the first at least 2 times you should say, oh, no, thank you, no, thank you, no, thank you. And only if the person persists, and usually on the 3rd time, you can say, oh, okay, I'll take it. Yeah. Is it not the same in Armenia? Like you just say yes from the first time?
Yeah, I've never heard anything other than that. So yeah, if you're out in a village and they say come in and have tea, you're just like okay. So then, and it's always an experience, and it'll keep you there for hours, but you'll end up just getting to really feel the society here, and you'll get to understand the dynamics a bit more. I've never heard of where you turn it down here. I always feel really uncomfortable if I say no because I legitimately can't go. So, but then they'll try to reschedule or something. So if you're in like the city or something, or if you're in the village, they'll make sure it still happens. So no, it's if they invite you in, do it if you can and if you have the time.
Okay. Do you want to share with some of the maybe traditions or about the culture or some superstitions that you got to know during your living?
Yeah. So I don't know how to explain this, but Armenians have kind of like an answer for everything. And I usually just kind of laugh it off. So they say like, if your feet get cold, you're going to end up with stomach ache or stomach problems. They say like, I think one time I was drinking water while I was eating soup or something, and it was like, no, that's going to hurt your stomach. But it's, there's always like little things for everything here. And I find it kind of like something that like grandmas would have passed down through generations, then people still kind of just believe it, even if it's true or not true. But I find it really funny. And when I talk to some of my friends who are diaspora, they always laugh about it too, because they grew up in the United States, for example, but their grandma passed that information down, and usually they just say it's not true. You just say okay, but I don't know. I mean, maybe there is some factual truth to it, but I always find it funny because if you don't like, I don't wear slippers around a house. I don't like my feet being covered, and as soon as I walk into somebody's house, they will throw those slippers right on me as soon as possible, so that I can keep my feet warm, so that I don't get a stomach ache or get sick somehow. So I think it's cute. It's like kind of this thing that I always expect in Armenia, and everybody will take care of you and make sure that you adhere to that. So I just go with it now, but I sometimes think about it and I just kind of laugh a little bit. But yeah, I think that's something that is really different here. Yeah, I think they're quite traditional with the way they eat food a little bit too. So certain things go with other things, and to kind of like change that routine is a little bit, I don't know even how to explain this. Like, there's certain foods that you just will always eat with that certain other food. Right. But I also found that, like, when I lived in Norway, for example, like with their traditional dishes, like, goodness forbid you cross cabbage with lamb ribs, like that. The cabbage goes with pork ribs, like, you know, so like in the United States, you just throw whatever on a plate and you eat it. It doesn't really have to match together necessarily. So I always find that really interesting when it comes to food culture.
I see. And usually it's related to like avoid problems with digestion, right? Not because of the superstitious beliefs or something.
I don't really know. I think that it always somehow has to do with digestion, and but I have no idea, actually. I listen to it and I just take it and I'm like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, okay, sure.
But I'm just, and then I try to do it in front of them, but however I do it later on, I do what I do, and it's never affected me. So I don't know if there's any truth to it or not, but it's kind of like you always have a grandma harping in your ear, but it's been passed down through generations. So everybody will say the same thing, kind of. It's cute, I think.
Yeah. Are you like, can you understand some Armenian, or I don't know, some Russian maybe?
Russian, yes, definitely more than Armenian. But I'm trying to learn Armenian here. I just haven't actually really attempted very much so far. So I have books, and I want to take classes once the virus goes away. But I want to take classes in person, not online, because there's a lot of voice. I don't even know what the word is. There's a lot of like pronunciations that I just can't do as an American speaker. So I need to like see somebody's face live, so that I can figure out those like inflections and the tones and stuff. It's very different for me. So I need to take a lesson, I think, in person. But that is my goal. It's a very difficult language, though. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I've heard so. Is it like, do you write it backwards, like from left to right, or?
No. So you still write it the same way, but like for me, like when I look at the Georgian alphabet, every letter looks different to me, okay? But when I look at the Armenian one, they all look the same. So I have to actually like visually really look at it and figure out where the little marks are going, and that dictates whether a letter is this or a letter is that. So if anybody is listening to this and they have no idea what we're talking about, go look up the Armenian alphabet and just look at it, and it'll blow your mind. It, to me, just everything looks the same. I haven't learned enough yet where I can distinguish it without really trying. So if I'm going to read like a sign for a grocery store, it takes me, I have to like look at it like this, and I have to break it all apart. And then I'm like, it says this. But I don't know what that word actually means. At least I can just identify the letters. So that's my little amount of progress that I've made so far.
Like, you can probably, a good tip would be, for example, to look at the alphabet and then to write it down how it sounds, and then just be able to talk to locals, right? Or do you think like quite a lot of people can understand English?
Yeah, I mean, I find English not to be that difficult to get by with here, actually, which probably is part of the reason that I haven't made a huge conscious effort to learn a little bit more. But I also live in Yerevan. So in Yerevan, getting by with English is fairly easy. I struggle more with the mentality of the people than the language. So there's still a little bit of a Soviet mentality on the older generation here. That is harder to get through than a language barrier for me. How would you define a Soviet mentality? Um, everything is a conspiracy theory, or it's I don't even know how to explain it. Everything is done kind of. What's the word?
Like, do you get questions like, "Are you a spy? What are you doing here?"
No, nobody. Thank goodness nobody does that here. No.
Sometimes, some locals actually in my country, they do ask foreigners, "Oh, you might visit foreigner." I mean, it's a half joke, right? It's not like serious.
Yeah.
But still, sometimes they say, "Oh, is he a spy? What is he doing here?"
Yeah, no, I don't get those here. I have gotten them in your country before too, actually. And Kazakhstan's really bad for it, actually. The Kazakhs love asking if I'm a spy. So sometimes I'm just like, what do you think? And then they kind of like fizzle off the question into something else. Right. No, but here I never get asked that. I think the Soviet mentality here that is a bit hard to get past is it's very inside of a box. There is no outside of the box. So it's kind of like it follows rules, but the rules don't really exist. The rules are still kind of defying what they think is actually happening in the place. So for example, like, I don't know how to explain. Like if I'm dealing, for say, with like a landlord or somebody who has got some type of control over my situation, I need to make sure that they understand my situation and that they get things in a formal agreement. And I know this is a problem in Central Asia with, if somebody were to come in your apartment and pay a little bit more money, that person didn't probably have an official contract with you, so they just kick you out to the street. I know that's a problem sometimes in Kazakhstan. That can be a problem here too, from what I've heard with people. So there are, with certain generations, you need to get stuff kind of in a writing because like they don't think outside of the box, but then when it's convenient for them, they do what they want. So I think that for me, I find that to be a little bit ingrained in the older generations here a little bit, but the younger generation is not like that at all, in my opinion. So there is definitely a huge divide. Now, there are certain reasons that the younger generation isn't as progressive as, Western Europe or the United States. On the contrary, that is not really like, in the same realm as, I guess, anything of what I was chatting about with like the Soviet mentality. So, but I also, again, live in Yerevan, so the villages might be completely different. And I haven't really tried to test that out because I do struggle with the language barrier in the villages a lot more than here. Yeah.
I see. Okay, yeah, well, actually, yeah, it makes sense. It was part of the Soviet Union, so especially the older generation would tend to stick more to the rules and how the way it should be, because in the Soviet Union they had like plans, 5-year plan, a 7-year plan, and like everything had to go exactly as it's written in the document. So let me see, it's been almost a year now, right, that you are in Armenia. So what are maybe your favorite places that you visited so far that you could recommend for our listeners?
Yeah, I think if you're a city person, which I am actually, I love nature, but I like nature just to be accessible, and I like it. I always have to return to a city. If you're a city person, I definitely suggest going to Gyumri, which is the second largest city. It's still really small, by terms of Western Europe or the United States, but it is really, really a charming place. And it is where the earthquake took place in 1988. So there's still actually destruction there today, which is really sad. But it's kind of like finding its feet again. And even Ryanair opened up discount flights there, which haven't happened yet because of the virus. But I was supposed to be on the first one from Germany. So it's
a direct flight from Germany to Gyumri.
Yeah. So
how much is the ticket?
Oh, it was like $30.
Oh my God.
Yeah. But
from Gyumri to Germany for $30.
Yeah. And then there's one from Athens, Greece to Gyumri as well. There is speculation that those flights are not going to end up happening at all, though. So I really hope that's not the case. Because Gyumri is really cool. It's got this really like interesting architecture made with like black tuff, which is like a volcanic stone here. So it's like the architecture and the stone is a little bit darker than like what you would see anywhere else. It's just a really charming city. It's got this like old school feel to it. I absolutely adore it. And there's some really cool cafes that have started popping up there. There's one called Herbs and Honey. And it's run by a guy who was living in Switzerland for many years. He's Armenian, and then came back, and he works with like local farmers and local artists to run this cafe. And he uses like herbs from the mountains and stuff for all the tea and local honey. It's a really, really unique place. So there's actually a lot going on in Gyumri that makes it worthy of tourism. So if you're a city person, I definitely recommend heading there. Also, I love Yerevan. Like, for me, it's reserved, but it also has like, it's foreign enough to keep me intrigued, but it's also like a very reserved and not too chaotic of a city. The buildings are pink here. They're made with like this pink tuft. Like my apartment right now, actually, if you were to go outside of it, you could see it. It's really beautiful. In the evenings, it like just kind of illuminates. It's really gorgeous. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on here compared to any other Armenian city. So if you like culture, experiences, food, nightlife, this is definitely the hub for that. If I were to say like nature, I always was drawn to the south because it was drier. There's not as many trees. It's dry. It's arid. It has a landscape that I'm not familiar with.
Okay.
So I always was drawn to that because it looked different than where I'm from in the US. Where I'm from is really green. It's hilly. Well, not the city, but like out in the western part, it's hilly. We have an ocean. Then I went up recently to the Lori. It's one of the provinces here. And it's completely green. It's got like rivers and trees. It's lush. And I really, really liked it. And I felt really kind of like at home in that environment. And I would definitely say like we were in Odzun, which is near the border of Georgia. There's monasteries there. But there's like, it's part of the Debed Gorge there. And it is absolutely some of the most beautiful scenery in this country, like hands down. So I would say that that's kind of become my new favorite area up in that.
What's the name of it?
Odzun. O-D-Z. Odzun. O-D-Z-U-N. Yeah.
Okay.
So
I'll check it out.
It's just stunning. And we stayed at, so before we went to Odzun, we stayed at a B&B in a village called Gargar. It's kind of close-ish to there. But the B&B is called Geologist House, and it's run by this guy, Armin. And it's just a stunning location in a village. Then we ended up at a B&B up in Odzun called B&B Odzun. And the family that ran it, the guy who runs it is named Sergo, and it's his family. He gave us like a vodka making class. He took us He took us all around the region. We got to see monasteries, gorges, like it was just incredible. So I mean, I think the hospitality of those places plus the scenery just left me speechless. So I think that's like my new favorite region for right now. I don't know. Like,
what's the name? What's the name of the B&B?
So there is Geologist House. It's in Gargar.
Okay.
So it's kind of close to Vanadzor. It's over the mountain pass, the Pushkins Pass. And then from there, we went to another B&B up in Odzun. It's called B&B Odzun. Both of them are exceptional. So if anybody's listening and they want a really cool place to stay in Armenia, like I highly recommend both places. We had fantastic experiences at both. But I would say those two areas like Gargar all the way, and then the whole drive up to Odzun was just remarkable. So we really, really, really fell in love with that province. And that's like, I think, my new favorite place. So maybe it'll be my getaway whenever I need like a green vacation.
How far is it of a drive from Yerevan?
So from here to get there, you would go to Vanadzor, which is like 2 hours-ish. I think.
By car?
Yeah, I think so. Hold on. Hey, hold on 1 second. Aram.
Yeah.
How far is Vanadzor from here?
2 hours.
2 hours. Okay. So so Vanadzor is like 2.5 hours, and from there, like you can get to those other places within like 30 to an hour. And it's really, really stunning.
Okay,
but I definitely recommend it.
Just like 3 hours, right?
Yeah.
Approximately. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. Yeah. Well, it seems like, you're having a really good time in Armenia. It's like, it seems like you like everything, but well, maybe except for the Soviet mentality. So can you maybe tell us a little bit more about the things that you don't like about the country?
Yeah, I think I would say that definitely what we were talking about earlier with like it's very traditional. And that is a really hard adjustment from, for somebody to get used to. The mentality is traditional. The values and stuff are really traditional. So while it does retain a bit of the culture here, it also is, for me, that's something that I don't prefer about the country. But I mean, I'm the guest here, so I kind of have to go with it, and hopefully I can showcase a different mindset that other people will realize that is acceptable as well. And we can hopefully see progress. I would say another thing I don't like is definitely, and I've never noticed this actually until the virus, there is a lot of like defiance against the government here, which is quite interesting because they actually just elected in a new government. And the prime minister here has the coronavirus right now, and he's telling people, listen, you have to like wear these masks, you have to do this, and people just don't seem to care. And it almost appears like there's a lack of education with people, but I think it's just genuinely some people just don't care. And unfortunately here in the city, we're having like 600 new cases today almost, and which is unprecedented for any country right now, where it is not, this has been its peak for a long time. So I kind of like, for me, that's a little bit difficult to get used to, because it is quite a large portion of society that's doing it. So I'm hoping that can kind of get squashed here soon, and we can start moving in a better direction so that we can get tourism back here. I think the other thing that really bothers me, and this is kind of something that I don't want to say this because it sounds a bit privileged, but I also need to address the problem because it is a problem. There's a lot of trash here, and it's not well taken care of, and a lot of people litter the lands, and I'm sure you noticed it when you were here, and it's a really bad problem. And I found out that a lot of the smaller villages don't actually have a trash collection. So people really don't have anywhere to put their trash, which is a two-street problem. One is the people need education so they know this isn't acceptable. Even if there's not a trash collection, you still don't just throw your trash anywhere. Secondly, the government needs some type of reform to help these communities out, because there needs to be education, there needs to be trash pickup, and there needs to be a better system in place here. It's really, really bad. So it's gotten a lot better.
So you mean people just throw away trash on the ground?
Yeah, we don't see it as much in Yerevan, in the city center, but it still exists. It's in the hidden corners here and there. You see it. So it's a really bad problem that I really hope gets addressed. And I know there's now there's more shaming of people for it. I don't know what the answer is. I don't know if shaming somebody for it is the right answer, but at least it's trying something. It's a really, really bad problem. So I've seen it worse than it is now. It's actually gotten better. So I'm hoping that it's just moving in the right direction, and we'll see some changes in the next year or two with it.
Maybe if it's connected to tourism, because tourism will also suffer if it's quite polluted. That's actually one of the problems we're having here as well. And it just people need to you need to raise awareness among locals.
Yeah, and we do like Aram and I try to kind of write about it and speak about it as much as we can. And other people that work in tourism have encouraged us to continue to do so. So we're going to keep writing about it and trying to educate people. But it's all about how, in my society, I would scream all kinds of curse words at somebody for it. Here, you have to take a bit of a different approach, because in my society, there is trash collection. There is this. So if somebody does that, there is literally no excuse about it. Here, there isn't an excuse, but you also have to consider the education level of a person in a village might be different than somebody in a city center. And they also don't have, maybe trash collection, which makes it a lot more difficult for them to figure out, okay, where do I dispose of this? Or how do I not create this trash in the first place? Right. So I think it's a whole process that needs to happen. But I have seen improvements since I first arrived in Armenia years ago. So I'm hoping that it'll still be on the up.
I see. Well, Megan, what is for example, when you think of Armenia, what is the one word that you would describe it with?
Friendly. I find it very hospitable, friendly, I guess. I just didn't want to use the word hospitable again. It's very friendly. It's like family.
Family. Okay. Well, you said right now you are between Germany and Armenia. So, what is maybe one or two things that, I don't know, several things that would happen, or maybe it's just one thing that would make you finally decide to stay, for example, to stick to Armenia in comparison to Germany, or vice versa?
Oh gosh, this is gonna sound like a really stupid and petty thing, but food diversity. No, if I can get a really good bowl of ramen, really awesome sushi, which there is no like ocean here, so I'm not sure how feasible any of this would be. If I could get all that stuff, it would make it a lot easier. No, for real.
If you had a really good here, then you would definitely say, okay, no more Germany. I'm gonna stick to Armenia now.
Yeah, no. I think like in reality, it's not the easiest country to live in when it comes to opportunities for travel. So, I can travel back and forth in Armenia all day, but as soon as I want to cross a border, I've got Turkey to the left, that's a closed border. I've got Azerbaijan to the right, it's a closed border. Iran to the south, closed border for me as an American. And then I have Georgia. So for me, sometimes when I'm here, I feel like I'm living in my own bubble because I cannot escape very easily. Luckily, though, with these new low-cost flights, it will change that a little bit at the impact of the environment, unfortunately. But I think that that's kind of right now, the inability to really move freely is a struggle for me. Whereas when I'm in Germany, I can go wherever I want, anytime I want, and it's not a problem. I can go to Norway for a weekend. I can go to Italy. Here, everything takes a little bit more work. So it's going to have to be like, okay, am I ready to settle in one location and understand that I really have to kind of sit still for a while? And that's, at a place I'm not sure I'm at yet. And there's other cities and places around the world that I do love. I really love Athens, Greece. So I could see myself probably living there as well. And they've got the ocean there, or they've got the water. So I have no idea where I'll end up. But for right now, I do like it here. And I feel very at home in this country.
I see. Well, is there anything else that you wanted to share about Armenia?
No, I think like once we get our stuff under control, if you're listening to this and you're curious about Armenia, come visit us. And hit me up and say hi, and if I'm here, maybe we can have a coffee. But I definitely encourage people to add it to their list and come here not just as an addition to another country. Come here to come to Armenia. It'll surprise you in really great ways. Don't get your hopes up and compare it to Georgia or this country or that country. Come here and come to Armenia, and I think you're going to really enjoy your trip.
Yeah, well, thank you. And the last question I wanted to ask you, are you called like when like among locals, do people call you Megan John, or I don't know? Yeah, what's the local name?
Yeah, Megan.
Oh, Megan.
They sound, so the Armenian language is really phonetic, so they sound out every single letter. So when I would say my name is Megan, and here they would look at it and say Megan. So they will pronounce everything. No, or like what you just said. So that's pretty much it. Everybody just calls
John. John in my language actually it means heart, like heart.
Really?
Yeah. So it's like when I was there, people would call me Aygul John, John, and I was like, for me it sounds like my heart Aygul or something. So I was that's
no,
really
they call me that as well for the most part. But I think when they're transferring it over into English, they don't really say that always because they know that I'm not saying that back to them. But if they're talking about me, maybe in Armenian, they would probably say that. I'm not sure. I now have to listen out for this, but I do know that they say Megan if they see my name written out. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.